Okay, this is your second of two videos this week. In the first video, I talked a little bit about the narrative poem, and then I gave you a couple examples of kind of longer narrative poems, a couple of my favorite narrative poems. There are a lot of other wonderful narrative poems. Again, a narrative poem tells a story, okay? The other type of poetry is called lyric poetry, and lyric poetry is emotional. Lyric poetry gets to our emotions. Lyric poetry depicts our emotions, gets inside of us, tries to create mood, feeling, whatever you might want to call it, okay? Just so you know, when we talk about poetry, we're not doing any of this iambic pentameter kind of thing or such. My goal, again, is to help you appreciate literature more, and I think that kind of study of poetry just is a different level than what we want to do. We want you to be able to read poetry and find some meaning for yourself, read some poetry, and be able to enjoy it, okay? Are liking and enjoying the same thing? Maybe not, but hopefully you can like it a little bit, at least, hopefully anyway, you can enjoy it some. That's what I want. It's important for you to put the idea in your head that you always have to read a poem twice, okay? And you have to read it not line by line like nursery rhymes, but by the punctuation, okay? So please read poems by the punctuation. Okay, so lyric poems. Lyric poems are poems that explore emotions. They explore the drama within us, they explore the pathos, the excitement, the real human experience. There's lots of emotions. Hence, I changed shirts for this video. I put on Walt Disney World shirt because, of course, Walt Disney World is the happiest place on earth, and happiness is an emotion, okay? So when you get to lyric poetry, you're thinking emotions. Thus, you see the shirt, happiness, emotion, okay? Okay, anyway, I want to share a few poems with you that are lyric, but those are the basic things about lyric poems. They delve into our emotions. They try to create an emotional feeling within us. Now, is the emotional feeling that you get going to be necessarily the same as the emotional feeling that Shelby or Sherry or Jordan or Ariana or somebody else in the class gets? No. And of course, if you're one of those people, then you just heard your name. But that's beside the point. We're going to react differently because poetry hits us differently, as does literature. That's okay. Okay? We're looking for you to allow yourself to have personal reactions to poetry, to allow it to get into your emotions. Okay? So when you read a poem, don't go in with any preconceived notions and don't fight yourself with it. Read it, enjoy it. There's lots of poems that are there for your liking. There's poems that you won't like. That's okay. Give yourself an honest chance. Read it twice. Don't drive yourself nuts trying to figure it out. Try to see if it creates some kind of a response, human response, emotion, feeling within you, thoughts within you, remindings of experiences you may have had. Okay, so let me just share a couple of poems with you. And for instance, here's a very well-known poem. You probably have encountered this poem before. It's some poem that may turn some of you off, but for some people, especially those who have experienced the emotion of love, this poem can mean a great deal. The name of the poem is How Do I Love Thee? Let Me Count the Ways. It's by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life, and if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. Okay? So, that's a poem that certainly evokes some emotion in us. Okay? And again, read it by the punctuation, not line by line, because it just is, you get so much more out of it when you read it by the punctuation. Here's another poem that will certainly stir some emotion in you. It's a very short and pretty shocking poem. The name of it is The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner. If you've seen these big old World War II planes, in the back there was a big glass enclosed area, and there was a machine gun in there, and the guy who sat in there shooting that machine gun was the ball turret gunner. From my mother's sleep I fell into the state, and I hunched in its belly till my wet fur froze. 6 miles from Earth, loosed from its dream of life, I woke to Black Flat and the nightmare fighters. When I died, they washed me out of the turret with a hose. How's that for stirring some emotion, huh? Not a lot of words. That's part of the beauty of poetry. Poetry does not necessarily take a lot of words. In a poem, you kind of take big thoughts and capsulize them so that the words are like popcorn kernels. They explode with a whole lot more meaning than the individual words might have all by themselves. Okay, that's what poetry does too. That's part of the neat thing in poetry, is that you can take big thoughts but have them contained in very small units of a poem. As in that poem, that was 5 lines, and yet you can picture it, right? You can just picture that one. Just as How Do I Love Thee. I mean, there's so many different experiences involved in there, and it's only, what, a 15-line poem, you know, and yet there's so much there, okay? That's part of what poetry is all about, is taking big thoughts and capsulizing them, okay? So you need, by the way, to have a pencil and paper, because I am going to give you the names of some poems that are in your book and the pages that they're on. And I am not going to put these in the assignment because I want to make sure everybody watches the video. Not everybody's been doing that, and if they don't this week, then they are going to be in a bad place, okay? So here's another neat poem that is pretty shocking. You may have encountered it before, but again, this week we're looking for poems that you can react to pretty quickly, and I almost want to say easily. You can't help but have a reaction to all of these poems. The name of this poem is Richard Cory. It's written by the poet Edward Arlington Robinson, who was a little bit of a whack job, I'll grant you that, but he was a very good poet, okay? Whenever Richard Cory went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from sole to crown, clean-favored and imperially slim. And he was always quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked. But still he fluttered pulses when he said, "Good morning," and he glittered when he walked. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In fine, we thought that he was everything to make us wish we were in his place. So on we worked and waited for the light and went without the meat and cursed the bread. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. Okay, how's that for a poem that shocks the heck out of you, huh? That's another one, you know, so strong emotion there, okay? A whole lot going on in this poem. A whole lot in all of 16 lines, okay? That's what poetry does. Poetry capsulizes bigger ideas. So poetry captures emotions and you know, kind of spells them out, but then the feeling that we can get can be huge, okay? So let me give you some other poems that I want you to read through this week, and these are the poems that I want you to use for your assignment, and I'll put the assignment, you know, on the website as I usually do, okay? So on page 710, Emily Dickinson's poem, A Bird. On page 735, Walt Whitman's poem, Song to the Open Road. That was 735. Elizabeth Barrett Browning's poem, How Do I Love Thee, is on page 977. Robert Frost's poem that you may know, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, page 887. Randall Jarrett, Death of a Turret Ball Gunner, page 603. To My Dear and Loving Husband, page 976. Richard Cory, which I just read to you, is 685. Alfred Tennyson is 1054. Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night is 7